We have demonstrated before. We have had calls to action before. We have seen our brothers and sisters shot in the streets, choked the life out of them, shot in their basements, in their own homes before. We have seen sit-ins at capitals across this country. We have taken over city council meetings before. We have all heard the call for reform. We have seen our cities and our states and our country create investment in creating those reforms. We've all seen what happens when good people of good conscience say, let's invest in diversity training. Maybe if we teach them that just because I am a different color and a different gender, maybe they'll treat me kinder. Let's try to explain our humanity and make them see us as dignified people. Maybe that will stop them from killing us. We have also seen the calls for diversity. We have seen what happens when people say, well, how about we get a police chief that is a person of color? What happens if we just get a mayor that will appoint a plaid chief? What happens if we get a city council that is diverse? Maybe that will create equity. Maybe that will stop the police from killing black people. Well, I'm here to remind you all that all of that has failed.
Yes.
The moment you get a diverse city council, the moment you get the posse caucus in the Minnesota House, the moment you get the first black woman to represent you in Congress, people start talking about how we are not talking appropriately, how we need to be pacified, how our calls for action are divisive, how we need to talk about unity, how we need to bring people together, how we need to do incremental change, how we need to just get comfortable in being oppressed for a long time. Because that's what I hear when people tell me, Ilhan, you shouldn't speak so loudly about racism, because if racism existed, you wouldn't be in Congress today. Well, we've had a black president, we've had a congressional black caucus, we've had black mayors, we've had black governors, and we've had black city council members, we've had black police chiefs, yet we are still getting killed, brutalized, surveilled, massively incarcerated, and we are still having conversations with our children on how to have a conversation with the people that are supposed to protect and serve them, so that those people don't in return kill them. So I am with you, I am tired. I might not have been born in the United States. I might not have inherited the trauma and the tragedy that black Americans have who come from enslaved ancestry, who have lived through lynching and Jim Crow and mass incarceration and police brutality. But what I do know is that for the last 25 years, I have lived as a black person in this country. I have lived as a mother raising black children. So I do know what it means to be black in America. I know what our young children go through because I was an adolescent interfacing with the police department here in Minneapolis. I know what it means for a police officer to look me in the eye and call me a zoo animal. So I know that my silence contributes to violence. I know my silence will contribute to complacency. And I know that none of you fought so hard to get me elected so that I can co-sign on a system that continues to oppress us. But I will never co-sign on a system that is unjust. I will never co-sign on the social and economic neglect that we face. I will never co-sign on the systematic disinvestment that our schools are faced with. I will never co-sign on funding a police department that continues to brutalize us. And I will never stop saying, not only do we need to disinvest in police, but we need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. There is a cancer. Everybody knows what a cancer is?
Yes.
So when somebody gets a cancer, and that cancer starts to spread throughout their body, and you know the root of that cancer is the leg, people say to the family of that person, we have to amputate this leg in order for that cancer not to spread and kill that person. They don't say we're going to continue to give medication, and we're going to continue to try different things, and we're going to continue to slowly die. We're going to do everything that we can to cut the source of that cancer so that you can have the ability to live. So today we are saying, we don't want your damn reforms. Continue to spread throughout our bodies. The police department is rotten to the root.
Yes.
And so when we dismantle it, we get rid of that cancer and we allow for something beautiful to rise. And that reimagining allows us to figure out what public safety looks like for us. It allows us to recognize where all of the investment that goes into that department should go in trying to increase public safety in our communities. It creates an opportunity for taxpayers to not continue to waste money on settlements for police brutality throughout our city. I used to work for a Minneapolis City Council member. And when I got there, the one thing I wanted to do more than anything was to do ride-alongs with police officers. So I went ride-alongs with police officers throughout the city. I went ride-alongs with police officers in the 3rd precinct. I went ride-along with police officers on the 4th precinct. And I went ride-alongs with police officers on the 2nd precinct. And what I did learn is that sure, as everyone knows, because I have cousins that served in the police department, that they are people, and in people there are good and bad. Right? That's just human nature. Same for politicians. There are good ones and there are bad ones. But the reality was, at almost every single interaction that they would have with people, there was certain triggering that would take place. There's a certain bias that is embedded in the person that is policing about the place they are about to police. And that is inherent in the system in itself. And so what I did know is that in every single interaction that the police would have with the people we went to go and serve and protect, that they were the ones with the training on how to de-escalate. They were the ones who were trained to stay calm. They were the ones that had all the tools to exist in an environment that was intense. But almost always they expected the person they were policing to have and behave differently than themselves. Now, I don't know how you expect a normal human who doesn't have any of those trainings to come into a situation that is tense better than the person who is trained to interact in that environment. And so I don't believe there is more training to be done. I don't believe there is more money to be invested in the police. I don't believe that we can have a conversation about how to make them better anymore. And I am delighted to know that there is consensus in the Minneapolis City Council that believes that this department is inherently beyond reform. When we had the encampment in front of the 4th precinct. It is interesting that they didn't find themselves there when we saw the incident of Flandro Castell. It is interesting that they didn't find themselves there when we had the ultimate conviction of police officer Mahmoud Noor. They didn't find themselves there when all of you were in that room shutting down the budget hearing and the budget proposal of the mayor at City Hall. But they found themselves there, so we can be happy about that. And what we need to do now is not to only keep them there, but make sure that they act on the statements that they have all made. Because we can all make statements. It is the actions that every single person should be watching for. You said this, now how are you going to act accordingly? And so our work as the city of Minneapolis, and I'm looking at the young people, the seasoned people, I'm looking at the brown people, I'm looking at the white people, I'm looking at all of you. Because this call for action needs to be sustained until we see that action. Because one thing that you know about this country's history is that every single progress has been met with regression. Every single progress has been met with regression. And so every policy that is won in support of progress, there are 10 proposals that are won by the other side to undermine that process and that progress. And so I need all of you to recognize this. This historic moment we find ourselves in will get us serious reforms that are impactful and meaningful. But you know, after everybody goes home after those wins, they will work overnight to undo and undermine every single thing we have won. So not only do we need to win, but we need to make sure we do everything that we can to build a system around it that helps sustain it. They're welcome. But I love you all. And yesterday we had a town hall for the Congressional Black Caucus, and it was called Living While Black in America. And Ayanna Presley, who I love, who's my sister out of Massachusetts, ended with this. And I'll paraphrase it, because the way in which she speaks is not something I can duplicate. But what she said is that herself and her parents and their parents inherited trauma and pain and poverty and disinvestment and dehumanization. And so today what we are fighting for is for our children to inherit love, wealth, humanity, and dignity. We do this work for love of ourselves, of our community, of our country, of this democracy that is supposed to exist, and of justice. And so we must continue to hold people accountable that want a certain system to fully function for certain people and completely have disinterest in that system functioning for the rest of us. So thank you for having me, thank you for being here, and thank you for investing in us.